What if the person you were destined to love was hidden behind a life shattered by tragedy? Someone you'd never expect to be your soulmate. Amelia, a driven businesswoman with everything money could buy, never imagined that an act of kindness would change her life forever. But behind Luthando's tired eyes lay a story of loss, love, and unrealized potential. A man forgotten by the world but destined for something greater. This is not just a story, but a true life, a journey of compassion, care, and the power of unconditional love. Stay with us as we unfold a tale that proves love, kindness, and care can heal even the most broken hearts. Subscribe, like, share, and join the journey. Johannesburg's bustling streets shimmered under the relentless downpour as Amelia Ndlovu hurried toward her luxury apartment in Sandton. Her designer heels clicked sharply on the rain-soaked pavement, blending with the honking cars and chatter from street vendors seeking shelter. After a demanding day managing her fashion brand, Amelia's only thought was a warm bath and a quiet evening. But as she approached her apartment building, something unusual caught her eye. A figure slumped near the entrance steps, partially shielded by a worn blanket. Her steps slowed. The man looked weathered but not defeated. His broad shoulders hunched against the cold, and his rugged face was partly obscured by the hood of a tattered jacket. The dim streetlights reflected off his sharp cheekbones and an unruly beard. Just as she was about to walk past, he shifted slightly, revealing piercing blue eyes, clear and intense like the open skies of the Drakensberg Mountains. Their gazes locked, freezing Amelia in place. There was something strikingly familiar in his look. Not pity, not desperation, but quiet dignity. Before she could reconsider, she reached into her bag and pulled out her designer umbrella. "Here," she offered, extending it toward him. He blinked, surprised. "I can't take that," he said, his deep voice rough but steady. "You need it more than I do." After a long pause, he accepted the umbrella with a quiet "thank you." Amelia nodded and hurried inside, rain dripping from her silk coat. But even after the elevator doors closed behind her, his piercing eyes stayed with her, stirring something she couldn't quite explain. The next morning, Johannesburg buzzed with its usual energy. Taxi drivers yelling for passengers, vendors calling out deals, and pedestrians rushing to work. Amelia, however, felt strangely out of sync. Her mind kept drifting back to the man from last night. During her lunch break, she found herself wandering near Nelson Mandela Square, past the outdoor cafes and high-end shops. She scanned the bustling crowd almost without realizing it, until she saw him. He sat near a street vendor's stall, his shoulders still strong despite his worn clothes. His face, though rugged, carried a quiet intensity that made it impossible for Amelia to look away. Before she could think twice, she bought 2 plates of vetkoek and mince from a vendor and approached him. "Mind if I sit?" she asked gently. He looked up, surprised but cautious, then nodded. They ate in silence at first, the aroma of fresh food mingling with the city's ever-present hum. "I'm Amelia," she offered, breaking the stillness. "Luthando," he replied, his voice softer now. Their conversation flowed naturally. He spoke thoughtfully, his words marked by someone well-educated. She learned he was once a structural engineer. His life derailed after a personal tragedy that left him homeless. When she rose to leave, she hesitated. "Will you be around tomorrow?" He nodded slowly. "I'm usually nearby." With a small, genuine smile, she promised to return, unaware that this small act of kindness would alter both their lives forever. Days turned into weeks as Amelia continued meeting Luthando at Nelson Mandela Square. Their connection deepened through shared meals and conversations. Each encounter revealed more about his life, a man who had once designed iconic buildings in Cape Town before losing everything in a tragic car accident that claimed his wife and daughter. Amelia admired Luthando's resilience despite his heartbreak. His quiet intelligence and passion for structural design shone through when he spoke about his past projects. His mind still saw possibilities in the world, even when life had stripped him of everything. However, her growing friendship with Luthando didn't go unnoticed. Her closest friend, Sile, a fellow fashion designer, voiced her concerns during lunch one afternoon. "Amelia, you can't keep spending time with a man like that. People are talking," Sile warned, lowering her voice as though Luthando's presence was something to be ashamed of. Amelia stiffened. "He's brilliant, Sile. He's just going through a tough time." Phil sighed. "Helping is one thing, but be realistic. He's homeless. What future do you see in this?" Amelia didn't answer. She hated how society measured a person's worth by appearances. Still, the conversation lingered in her mind as she met Luthando later that evening. He noticed her unease instantly. "Something's bothering you." She hesitated, then spoke honestly. "Some people think I'm making a mistake by spending time with you." Luthando's expression darkened, but he kept his voice steady. "If you believe them, I won't blame you. I understand how people see me." Amelia shook her head firmly. "You're not defined by your circumstances." He studied her with quiet intensity. "Thank you for seeing me." Determined to help, Amelia made a bold decision. She spoke to an old family friend, Mr. Dlamini, who owned one of Johannesburg's largest construction companies. After hearing Luthando's story, he agreed to meet him, though with skepticism. The next day, Amelia accompanied Luthando to the company's downtown office. His tattered jacket and worn boots drew curious glances, but he walked with quiet confidence, his back straight. Mr. Dlamini, a stern, no-nonsense man, glanced through Luthando's faded resume. "You claim to be an engineer, but you have no recent references." Luthando met his gaze steadily. "I understand your hesitation. Let me prove my skills. No pay, just a chance." Impressed by his determination, Mr. Dlamini relented. "1 week. Impress me or this ends." As they left the office, Luthando exhaled deeply, a spark of hope lighting his eyes for the first time in years. "You didn't have to do that," he said quietly. "I believe in you," Amelia replied. In that moment, beneath Johannesburg's vast sky, something unspoken passed between them, a connection forged not by charity but by belief, trust, and something deeper they couldn't yet name. Luthando's first week at Dlamini Construction was anything but easy. He arrived at the construction site each morning before sunrise, determined to prove himself. Despite the skeptical glances from workers and the foreman's gruff attitude, he focused on the tasks given to him: design evaluations, structural calculations, and on-site problem-solving. His brilliance couldn't be ignored for long. One afternoon, the site faced a major setback. A critical support beam placement had gone wrong, threatening to delay the entire project. The engineers were stumped, debating costly and time-consuming solutions. Luthando studied the structural design carefully, his mind calculating angles and load capacities with practiced ease. "Excuse me," he interjected cautiously, addressing the team. "If we reinforce the base with crossbeams and adjust the angle by 15 degrees, we can stabilize the structure without tearing it down." The site went silent. After a tense pause, Mr. Dlamini, who had arrived moments earlier, nodded. "Let's try it." To everyone's astonishment, Luthando's solution worked perfectly. His quick thinking saved the company thousands of rand and weeks of potential delays. Word spread quickly within the company, turning skeptical stares into looks of respect. Meanwhile, Amelia was busy organizing her fashion label's largest charity gala. The annual event attracted South Africa's elite and influential business leaders. This year, she wanted the theme to be bold yet elegant, reflecting resilience and rebirth. One evening, she met Luthando at their usual spot near Nelson Mandela Square. His face was brighter, his shoulders less weighed down by invisible burdens. "I have something to tell you," he said with a rare smile. "Mr. Dlamini offered me a permanent position. I'm officially hired." Amelia beamed. "I knew you could do it. But there's more," Luthando added. "They want me to lead the design team for the new Dlamini corporate headquarters." Amelia's heart swelled with pride. "You're incredible, Luthando." As their conversation flowed, inspiration struck her. What if you design the venue for my charity gala, she suggested. Something modern, symbolic. Like a phoenix rising from the ashes. Luthando hesitated. That's a high-profile event. Are you sure about this? I trust you completely, Amelia replied without hesitation. The following weeks were a whirlwind of creativity and collaboration. Luthando poured his heart into the project, crafting an architectural masterpiece that combined bold steel arches and sweeping glass panels symbolizing renewal and hope. The design echoed his personal journey, a story of strength, survival, and second chances. When the gala night finally arrived, Johannesburg's elite gathered in awe of the breathtaking venue. Journalists buzzed about the mysterious lead architect who had created such a groundbreaking design. Amelia, radiant in an emerald silk gown, proudly introduced Luthando as the visionary behind the masterpiece. The crowd erupted into applause, their admiration genuine and unreserved. That evening, as they stood together under the dazzling lights, Amelia and Luthando realized they had not only built something remarkable but also laid the foundation for something even more profound. Love built on respect, belief, and unbreakable trust. The success of the charity gala catapulted Luthando into Johannesburg's spotlight. His architectural design received rave reviews from top industry critics, earning him new contracts from prestigious companies. His life, once defined by loss and homelessness, now gleamed with renewed purpose. Despite his rising career, Luthando remained humble. He continued meeting Amelia regularly, their friendship evolving into something deeper. Their shared moments felt effortless, whether exploring the vibrant streets of Mabening or watching sunsets from the hills overlooking the city. One evening, after a long day at her design studio, Amelia invited Luthando to her loft in Sandton for dinner. Her home, a blend of modern art and African-inspired decor, reflected her creative spirit. I thought we could celebrate your success, she said, placing a candlelit dinner on the table. Luthando smiled warmly. You've done so much for me already. You did it yourself, she insisted. I only reminded you of who you are. Over dinner, their conversation turned personal. For the first time, Luthando spoke about the accident that took his family. His voice trembled as he recounted losing his wife, Thandi, and their daughter Ayanda, in a tragic car crash caused by a drunk driver. I blamed myself, he confessed. I couldn't save them. And I lost everything afterward. Amelia reached for his hand, her eyes glistening with tears. You're allowed to heal, Luthando. You've carried this alone for too long. Her words wrapped around his heart, dissolving walls he thought were impenetrable. He realized he hadn't just found a second chance in his career but also in love. As their bond deepened, rumors began circulating in Johannesburg's social circles. People speculated about Amelia's relationship with the once homeless architect. At a fashion industry event, she overheard a group of colleagues whispering cruel remarks. She could have anyone but she's with him, one sneered. Maybe it's a charity project, another laughed dismissively. Amelia's chest tightened, but she stood tall. She would not let prejudice or shallow opinions dictate her life. Luthando was more than his past. He was kind, brilliant, and the most genuine person she'd ever known. Later that night, she confided in him. People are talking about us. Luthando met her gaze steadily. Does it bother you? Not even a little, she said fiercely. I just want you to know. Choose us. His breath hitched, emotion flickering across his face. I never thought I could have something like this again. You're allowed to be happy, she whispered. With the city lights twinkling below them, Luthando gently cupped her face, their foreheads touching as they shared a quiet, intimate moment that spoke of promises unspoken but deeply felt. For the first time in years, they both understood what it meant to be truly seen, accepted, and loved, beyond circumstances, beyond judgment, and beyond the shadows of the past. Their hearts were finally in harmony, bound by compassion, respect, and an undeniable connection that nothing could break. Life for Amelia and Luthando blossomed with joy and promise, but the past has a way of reappearing when least expected. One crisp autumn morning, Luthando received a letter delivered to his apartment. It bore no return address, but the handwriting was familiar, achingly so. His hands trembled as he opened it. Luthando. I know it's been years, but I need to see you. Thandi. His heart pounded. It couldn't be real, Thandi was gone. He read the letter again, struggling to breathe. Memories of the accident that had shattered his world flooded back. Was this someone's twisted idea of a joke? Or had he misunderstood what happened all those years ago? Later that day, Amelia noticed Luthando's unusual silence as they met for lunch at a quaint cafe in Melville. His usually warm eyes were clouded with worry. Is everything okay? She asked gently. He hesitated before handing her the letter. As she read it, her brow furrowed in concern. This can't be. I thought so too, he interrupted, his voice thick with emotion. But what if she survived? What if I gave up searching too soon? Amelia placed her hand over his. You need to find out the truth. Luthando nodded, determination hardening his expression. I'll start with the hospital records from that night. Days turned into a relentless quest for answers. Luthando visited hospitals across Johannesburg, searching archives and speaking to anyone who might remember the crash. Each dead end tightened the knot in his chest, but he refused to give up. One evening, after yet another fruitless search, Amelia found him at their favorite lookout point overlooking the city skyline. I couldn't find anything, he whispered, defeated. She wrapped her arms around him. Even if this leads nowhere, you're not alone. We'll face it together. Just as they considered closing that painful chapter, a private investigator Luthando had hired called. Mr. Dlamini, we found something. Or rather someone. His heart raced as he listened. The investigator explained that a woman matching Thandy's description had been seen at a rehabilitation center outside Soweto. She had checked in under a different name but had scars matching injuries from the accident. Luthando clenched the phone tightly. Is she alive? The investigator hesitated. She is. But there's more you need to know. Before he could explain further, the call dropped. Panic surged through Luthando as he tried to reconnect, but the line remained dead. Amelia found him pacing their apartment, his face pale with worry. What happened? They found her, he choked out. She's alive. But something's wrong. Amelia grasped his hands. Then we'll go together. Whatever's waiting, we'll face it side by side. As they prepared for the journey to Soweto, Luthando couldn't shake the feeling that this discovery would change everything. His past, his future, and possibly even the love he'd finally found. The road to Soweto stretched endlessly before Luthando and Amelia, their car cutting through the stillness of the South African plains. The sun dipped low, casting long shadows over the land, mirroring the uncertainty clouding their hearts. Neither spoke much during the drive, each lost in a swirl of emotions, hope, fear, and unanswered questions. As they approached the gates of Hope Haven Rehabilitation Center, a modest facility nestled on the outskirts of Soweto, Luthando's hands trembled on the steering wheel. He hadn't felt this vulnerable in years. Amelia squeezed his arm reassuringly. We'll face this together, she whispered. They were greeted by Nurse Mbali, a kind-faced woman whose gentle demeanor immediately put them at ease. After confirming Luthando's identity, she led them to a small, sunlit garden where residents gathered for afternoon activities. She spends most of her time here, Nurse Mbali explained softly. Luthando's heart pounded with each step. Then he saw her. Sitting on a wooden bench beneath a jacaranda tree was a woman with delicate features and familiar dark eyes that once held his entire world. Her hair, now streaked with silver, framed a face worn by time and sorrow but still achingly beautiful. Thandi, he breathed. The woman turned slowly, her expression wary and distant. She studied Luthando with searching eyes but showed no recognition. Nurse Mbali gently touched his shoulder. She suffered severe trauma after the accident. She lost her memory. And has lived here ever since. Luthando's knees buckled, and Amelia caught him just in time. Tears streamed down his face as he struggled to process the impossible truth. His wife, his lost love, was alive but didn't remember him or the life they once shared. Determined not to give up, Luthando visited every day. He shared stories from their past, brought sketches of their dream house, and played her favorite songs. He spoke of their daughter Ayanda, and the life they had built together. At first, Thandi listened politely but with distant curiosity. Yet, over time, faint flickers of recognition began to surface. A soft smile at the mention of Ayanda, a lingering touch when he handed her flowers. One afternoon, as they sat under the same jacaranda tree, Thandi traced her fingers over a handmade beaded bracelet Luthando had brought, a replica of one she used to wear. "I remember this," she whispered, her voice trembling. "You made this for me." The day Ayanda was born, emotion crashed over Luthando like a tidal wave. "Yes," he choked out, barely able to speak. "You do remember." Their eyes met, and for the first time in over a decade, she saw him, not as a stranger but as the man she had once loved with all her heart. Amelia watched from a distance, her chest tightening with conflicting emotions. Joy for Luthando, yet an undeniable ache deep within her. She had helped him reclaim his past, but where did that leave her in his future? The days following Thandy's awakening were filled with emotional highs and deep introspection. Memories of her life before the accident came flooding back in vivid fragments. Her love for Luthando, their daughter Ayanda, and the life they had built together. Each memory mended a piece of her shattered past, making her feel whole once again. Luthando spent every possible moment by her side, holding her hand, recounting old stories, and making new promises. It felt like a miracle, one he had never dared to hope for. But amidst this joyful reunion, Amelia felt the walls of her world closing in. One late afternoon, as the golden hues of the setting sun bathed the garden in warm light, Thandi asked the question Luthando had been dreading. "Where is Ayanda?" she whispered, her voice thick with longing. Luthando's expression darkened. He clenched his fists, fighting against the wave of pain that resurfaced. She didn't survive the accident." Thandi gasped, tears spilling down her cheeks as she clutched her chest. "No, not Ayanda." Luthando pulled her into his arms, rocking her gently. "I'm so sorry, my love. I tried to save her. I tried." Their shared grief consumed them as years of bottled pain were finally released. Amelia watched from the shadows, her heart breaking anew. She had been Luthando's rock during his darkest days, but now she felt like an outsider intruding on a sacred reunion. Later that evening, Amelia sat alone on a bench near the center's courtyard, staring blankly at the sky. She couldn't deny the deep connection Luthando and Thandi shared. It was something history had forged, something unbreakable. Lost in thought, she didn't notice Luthando approaching until he gently sat beside her. "I've been looking for you," he said softly. Amelia forced a smile. "You've been busy. Where you're meant to be." He took her hands, his gaze earnest and conflicted. "Amelia, what we have, it matters. You've been my light when I couldn't find my way." "But she's your wife," Amelia whispered, her voice cracking. "Your past, your forever." Luthando cupped her face, his eyes shining with unshed tears. "I don't know how to explain what I feel. My heart is torn, between what was and what is." Amelia drew a shaky breath. "Maybe love doesn't have to be divided. Maybe it just is." The following weeks were a delicate balancing act. Luthando helped Thandi adjust to life outside the rehabilitation center while supporting Amelia through her own silent struggles. One evening, Thandi asked to speak with Amelia alone. They met under the familiar jacaranda tree, its blossoms shimmering under the moonlight. "I see how he looks at you," Thandi began, her voice steady but soft. "The same way he used to look at me. With love." Amelia swallowed hard, unsure what to say. "I'm not here to reclaim the past," Thandi continued. I'm here because life gave me a second chance. But I know Luthando's heart isn't just mine anymore. Amelia blinked back tears. I never wanted to come between you. Thandi smiled faintly. You didn't. Life happened. And maybe there's a way forward for all of us. For the first time, hope shimmered through the uncertainty. The past and present were colliding, but perhaps, together, they could build a future none of them expected. Days turned into weeks as Luthando, Thandi, and Amelia navigated the fragile new reality they found themselves in. Every moment was a balancing act, a delicate dance between the past and the present. While Luthando poured his energy into helping Thandi adjust to life outside the rehabilitation center, he also couldn't ignore the deep bond he shared with Amelia, forged through shared struggles and unwavering support. One crisp Saturday morning, Thandi suggested visiting their old home in Johannesburg's Melville neighborhood. Though time and tragedy had taken much from them, she yearned to see the place where she and Luthando had built a life filled with love and dreams. Amelia, sensing the significance of the visit, offered to stay behind, giving them space. But Thandi surprised her with an unexpected request. Come with us, she said gently. You're a part of his life. Of our story now. Amelia hesitated but finally agreed, sensing that this journey was about more than revisiting memories. It was about finding closure and perhaps a new beginning. The drive to Melville was filled with quiet reflection. As they arrived at the old house, a wave of nostalgia hit Luthando and Thandi like a tidal surge. The once vibrant home stood weathered but sturdy, a silent witness to their past joys and sorrows. Hand in hand, they walked through the rusting gate, memories resurfacing with every step. Luthando pointed to the front porch where he and Thandi used to sit on warm summer nights, dreaming of their future. Amelia lingered behind, letting them reminisce. But as she gazed at the house, she couldn't shake the feeling that this journey was also meant for her, a chance to reconcile her place in Luthando's life. Inside the house, the familiar creak of the wooden floor echoed through the empty rooms. In what used to be Ayanda's bedroom, Thandi gently ran her fingers over the faded mural they had painted together, a field of daisies stretching toward a bright sky. Tears welled in her eyes as she whispered, I can still hear her laughter. Luthando pulled her into a tight embrace, their shared grief filling the silent room. Amelia quietly stepped back, giving them privacy. Moments later, Luthando found Amelia standing in the backyard, her arms crossed against the cool breeze. Thank you for coming, he said sincerely. She turned, her eyes glistening. I wasn't sure if I should. But being here feels right somehow. Before Luthando could respond, Thandi joined them, her expression resolute. This place holds our past. But I think it's time we build something new. Amelia blinked in surprise. What do you mean? Thandi took both their hands in hers. We've all been through so much. Maybe this isn't about choosing one life over another. Maybe it's about creating a future where love isn't defined by rules or the past. Luthando's heart swelled with gratitude and hope. In that moment, he saw a path forward, not bound by old memories or impossible The journey wasn't over, but for the first time they could see a future, one where healing, forgiveness, and love could coexist in ways none of them had ever imagined. Months passed, and life slowly found a new rhythm for Luthando, Thandi, and Amelia. The journey hadn't been easy, but together they built something rare, an unbreakable bond forged from shared love, loss, and resilience. Thandi, fully recovered and ready to embrace the world again, decided to open a support center for trauma survivors, inspired by her own remarkable recovery. She named it Ayanda's Haven, a tribute to the daughter she would carry forever in her heart. Amelia, too, found her calling in unexpected ways. Leaving behind her corporate career, she launched a non-profit that provided housing and career development for struggling families, starting with the Johannesburg community where she first met Luthando. As for Luthando, he poured his soul into his art, creating powerful sculptures that told their shared story of loss, hope, and rediscovery. His work gained global recognition, but his true fulfillment came from the life he shared with the two women who had reshaped his heart. One sunny afternoon, Ayanda's haven held its grand opening. Friends, supporters, and community members gathered, celebrating the incredible journey that had brought them all together. Luthando stood at the entrance, holding Thandy's hand on one side and Amelia's on the other, a powerful symbol of unity and acceptance. When the ribbon was cut, applause erupted, echoing through the air like a triumphant song of survival and love. In that moment, they knew they had created something far greater than themselves, a legacy built on compassion, understanding, and second chances. Close so much for watching this heartfelt story to the very end. We hope you found it as inspiring and emotional as we did while creating it. If this story touched your heart, please share it with your loved ones, because sometimes a single act of kindness can change lives in ways we never expect. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, like this video, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another captivating story. We'd also love to hear from you. Share your thoughts in the comment section below. What did you learn from this story? How did it make you feel? Thank you for watching. And remember, love and hope can bloom even in the most unexpected places. See you in the next story.